We only need to harness 1% of that power before all painters' problems go away, and we can all sell our pictures, because people are like, oh, you like Sergio's? Yeah, it's pretty cool, but I'm into Judson's, and that guy's into Josh's, It's what defines me.
I don't know if I like that, though.
All right, guys, welcome to Waiting to Dry. I'm Sergio Lopez.
I'm Josh Lawyer.
Judson Monroe.
Hey, Judson, thanks for coming by.
No, my pleasure. It's super fun.
Yeah, taking some time out of your trip from Colorado to come hang out here.
Yeah. Every time I come to Santa Rosa, there's always cool art stuff to do, for sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
it must be brutal for you to be dealing with this freezing cold weather.
I know, huh? It's really cold in Denver right now where I live, and then I come out here and I was like bounding in the fields today.
Yeah, it's great in the day. Yeah, this nice sunshine that we have right now.
Yeah, I went to the coast yesterday and painted.
Oh, did you?
It was
awesome!
Beautiful and easy, not too windy or anything. So
awesome.
Super fun.
That's perfect.
And at the same time, my mom called me yesterday and she's like, "How freezing cold is it over there?" Oh, it's cold. Yeah. We're freezing to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it tough.
Like 30 during the day in Denver right now is probably a luxury.
Yeah. It feels in the city too. It always feels different. And
well, it's interesting. When I went to go visit you, when we went to paint in Breckenridge, it was snowy most of the time I was there. Well, it's like half and half. But that last day when we went to Denver to hang out in the city, when it was sunny, and like it was probably like in the 50 degrees, and it was like almost t-shirt weather there after everything else.
Yeah, it's two different, totally different places. It's kind of like Santa Rosa and the coast.
Yeah.
Just because what's going on at Santa Rosa, that doesn't mean it's going to be the same at the coast. And in the mountains and Denver, it's always totally different. So
Yeah.
So were you always from Colorado?
Yeah, more or less. I've lived in Colorado, and I lived in New Orleans during high school and stuff like that. So I've lived a couple places, and I lived in Italy for a while. But I always end up going back to Colorado. That's where my parents live and stuff like that. So.
Is that what you prefer?
I don't actually think of it in terms of prefer, because I really love painting outside, and this part of California is probably my favorite place in the country to paint outside. But when we were last in town looking for a place to stay, it was right after the fires, and the rental inventory was a little crazy. There wasn't much available.
Right.
People were looking for other places and stuff, so we ended up going back to Colorado.
Is the goal to sometime make it this way?
I don't know. I think my wife, who's my in-laws live here and stuff, and she really loves it here. And maybe one day we would live out here or something. But I do really like Colorado. I get it kind of matches me, I guess, and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I'm always I don't think of it that way, because so much of what I'm doing is painting outside. That sort of hopefully I live in California at some point, and 20 other places between now and then.
Right.
So
yeah, nice.
That's cool.
I did live here for 2 years.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you lived in Occidental.
Yeah, about 3 years ago, I lived here for 2 years, and it was awesome. That's when I first met Sergio.
Nice.
Yeah, he just like out of the blue just kind of sent me an email and be like, "Hey, you look like you're an actual serious painter, so let's get together and paint."
Yeah, totally. I remember we went and ate lunch downtown at that Puerto Rican place.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah, but it was cool because I'd been in the area for a little bit, and I'd looked at a million people's websites, and I just always was sort of like, okay, well, that's really cool what you're doing, but why do I feel like we wouldn't totally get along? And then I saw a bunch of Sergio's outdoor work and painted Rose's pictures and things like that, and I was like, okay, well, we'll be friends or whatever. And I knew, when we first met or whatever, I was like, yeah, this guy's cool.
Nice. When you guys first went and had lunch, did Sergio pay for the bill?
I can't remember. I bet I'm sure we split. I don't know.
Very
Probably.
progressive.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you did pay for the bill because you were like, "Oh, I brought
dragged
you out."
I dragged you out. You were the one meeting a stranger from the internet.
Yeah. On top of that, how did you find his email?
On my website, maybe.
Oh
or what?
yeah. It was totally. It was just whatever was on the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a painter thing. Like everybody, I look now. I've seen a lot of websites recently with like home phone numbers on it. I don't know if that's like a bad sign. Like, please call. You know, I take calls any hour of the day. Like this. Well, you want to talk about something? You know, so.
Especially if you have commissions.
Yeah,
for me.
totally. It's like I don't care. Call.
Yeah, someone will call and they're like, "Oh, is John there?" And they're like, "Oh, wrong number." But
Yeah.
how's your day going?
Totally.
Nice. So you guys met. It was love at first sight.
Yeah. But yeah, we what did we do after that? We probably got together and went to paint at the coast after that. I'm sure. Yeah. Because you're a big plein air painter as well.
I just really like painting outside. You know.
Nice.
Big proponent of painting from life.
Yeah, and you know the other thing about plein air painting, I've almost started using the word like portable painting lately because I know so many people that have just gotten out of all of these ateliers. I noticed John Wentz mentioned how many of these schools are around now.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of the people coming to the States aren't going to be able to get studios right away and stuff like that. And I feel like if someone has some experience portable painting, they're way more likely to hit the ground running wherever they end up going. You can always kind of do what you're doing because you can paint outside, and it doesn't have to be outside either. Painting in somebody else's living room, portrait commissions at their house, copying at museums, all that stuff. To me, it's all portable painting. It's a kit in your backpack, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually started like in the fine art world, dipping my toes into it was through doing plein air events because I just thought, okay, I don't really know how to get into a gallery yet, so these things are just like pay an application fee and you can start showing your work wherever you are.
Well, they'll teach you that in art school.
Sure, they will.
I'm just kidding.
Speaking of art school, though, you have quite a different beginning from most of our guests because you actually went to like a traditional sort of school as more of a, I don't know if it's an atelier school, but you studied at the Florence Academy.
Yeah. So the word academy and atelier and stuff, they are used kind of differently. To me, an atelier will always be you're more in the actual studio of somebody who's working. An example of that would be, I can't really think of one off the top of my head, a really good painter. Doesn't Karl Dobsky have like some painting school thing?
Yeah, the safe house.
You're kind of like in his studio. That wouldn't be an academy. That'll be an atelier. An academy has a curriculum, and then you go through the curriculum.
Oh, okay.
Judson looked at me as if I had the answer, and I know nothing.
Yeah, one thing you'll come to understand from Josh is that he does not know any artist names.
No sweat, because I got to get better at not name dropping, and that's just one I can think of where the school is small enough that really when you're going to school there, you're really a student of his kind of in his space.
Okay.
And I might know the artist, I just don't know their name. I'm just horrific at remembering names.
Yeah.
Right, Burbio?
What do you keep calling me? Sergio Garcia?
Yeah. I was like, when we first started, I'm like, oh, yeah, hey, we're starting this podcast, me and Sergio Garcia. And I'm like, that's not correct. Yep, see how bad? There's a ton of people I know that it takes me like a year to remember their name. And it does, you do the whole like, oh, what's that guy's name again?
Yeah.
You know,
totally.
Or you stand next to him and wait for someone else to say his name or things like that.
We've all done that.
Yeah, totally.
Bro.
Yeah, I see the same people at a lot of the shows at Christopher Queen Gallery. I probably know like 2 or 3 of their actual names.
Yeah,
like, oh, how are you doing? So good to see you again.
The bad
will get you out of all gyms.
The bad thing is because I'm pretty good at remembering faces.
Yeah,
but if someone remembers me, especially at art shows, because you meet so many people, and they're like, "Hey, Josh," and I'm like, I can't even remember your face. And in that case, in that scenario, usually I feel like they can read that on my face. You know, there's no faking. I'm like, hey.
It actually took me a couple of times to remember Monty's face.
Really?
Yeah.
Sorry, Monty.
Yeah.
I apologize for Sergio.
He gets trashed almost every episode. Well, not trashed, but he gets shouted out in a not the greatest light.
How dare they?
I was actually curious, like, how did you know to go to the Florence Academy of Art? Because when I went to school, I kind of went to the Academy of Art in San Francisco just because I knew it, because, like, they advertise so much. So I'm like, how did you know to, like, try and find a place in Italy?
So I had actually lived in Italy when I was much younger with my parents. And when I was a kid there, which was, 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah, I saw that on I don't know where, but it said something about you. Maybe on your website where it said that you've been painting since you were 13. I was like, how
I don't like to play that up because it's certainly like, my work. There's a lot of people that have been in it for a lot shorter than me doing better. But I've always kind of been interested. And when I was there, I met this guy named Charles Cecil. Mm-hmm. He runs another school in town in Florence. Florence is a real hub right now. I think there's like 6 or 7 schools. There's a new Chinese school. There's a Russian school, Angel Academy, Florence Academy, Cecil School, the Florence Studio, Atelier San Luca. It's a huge group of schools. I had met Charles Cecil and taken night drawing from him. When it was time to go to university, I went to Colorado University, and I was just miserable from the second I got there. I hated it. And every year I was a student there, I applied to go to Florence Academy. I got rejected the first year, waitlisted the second year. The third year, my really cool uncle bought a painting from the boss and kind of schmoozed me a spot in school.
Nice.
And I paid my way in or something like that. And I ended up going for 4 years and then working for another 2 after that.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. It's a different... I was just there October, November, December. The school is very different now from when I went, and I'm kind of glad I went when I went.
How so?
They've gotten a lot bigger. They've got this thing where they're really trying to be an institution.
Okay.
It's interesting, but it's also art historically short-sighted because if you know art history, the only thing an institution's ever done is be rebelled against. It's not good. People don't like institutions. They're not lean and mean and changey enough, so.
If there's anything I know art history.
Well,
you know about rebelling against institutions.
I would know about that.
You probably would have had a great time at old Florence Academy, and now you would have been like, come on.
Probably.
So I still go to Italy pretty often.
It seems like you're there almost every year.
I know, I do. I think it is. Every year I've gone for like 2 or 3 months. You can go for 90 days without doing any paperwork.
Well, that's John Wentz was talking about going to Paris for 3 months.
Oh, really?
Doing the same sort of thing.
Doing the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of the standard, I think.
I was really interested. I didn't 100% agree with all the differences. When he talked about the differences between being in Paris and the scene in the States, I agreed with most of them, but that there is a difference is definitely true.
Oh, for sure.
The people that are doing it there, like, in the States, you can, I know it's rough right now for everybody, but in the States, you can make money doing this. There, you really can't make anything. So as a result, the scene is kind of less commercial because there's no point in even trying.
Right.
It's like, why? There's no payoff,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Huh. Well, good to know.
But do you think people are doing their own thing, or are they trying to be like, okay, let me create a body of work so I can try to sell it in the States?
Everybody there that's successful is working there because they have sales in the States. And there's a bunch of cool people that definitely count in that category.
Yeah.
A bunch of the students are there with a very short-term mentality. They're coming to go to school, and then they're going to go back to the States, and they'll probably make the body of work that they're trying to make their name based on in the States, not at school in Italy.
Yeah.
And then there's the people that really are either from there or have lived there forever, and they're there almost maybe more because of the Italy part than the school part or something. And, you know, that group isn't, you know, they're a little more free. They're just making pictures, and, you know, you go 5 years later and what they're doing is totally different, and that doesn't, like, affect their brand or anything because they're not selling anything. So.
Right.
They're there for the cold cuts and pasta.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can joke about that all you want, but the grocery store in Italy is like my favorite place in the world. I hang out there all afternoon. You know,
You're like plein air painting in the grocery store.
Pretty close. Yeah, there's
or portable painting.
Portable painting. Yeah, way cool. Trademark.
TM.
Yeah. One of my buddy Talope, he always calls me an urban plein air painter because one day I explained doing graffiti and kind of doing it in these cool areas where you'll be next to like a stream under a bridge and and there's homeless shit next to you, but it's like I don't know, it's weird. This weird thing's like, oh, you're a urban plein air, and he keeps calling me that, and I don't agree.
There's a cool painting. My friend Flash painted a painting of his friend, and actually Mark D'Alessio's done it too. Paintings of people doing graffiti murals in urban places, and they were painted completely from life, and they're really cool pictures. You know, I think Mark D'Alessio's was in Copenhagen, and it's like a bunch of kids spray painting and stuff. It's really cool. It's impressive. Cool. If you paint it outside, you know how hard it would be to get somebody who's moving around doing stuff in a picture, you know.
And he gets the actual the piece in the painting as well.
Yeah. And it's cool because it's like half done.
Yeah,
you know. So it's
cool.
Really, it totally makes sense. You know,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because we were just talking about how much, at least I and I think Sergio, like unfinished paintings. So what's a painting of a person painting an unfinished painting?
I don't think you guys are alone, though, because the Met Brower had that show, what is it, a year or two ago, and that was a smash hit, lines around the block to see all the unfinished work. So,
wait, which one?
I think it was called Unfinished or something, and it was there's a branch of the Met that I forget exactly where it is, and they had some of the more famous half-finished pictures, and it was, I mean, they were, you know, selling the tickets were like 2 weeks out or whatever.
Right.
So,
it's awesome.
Yeah, I wish I could have seen that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
would have been cool.
But yeah, I mean, I think the other thing about that Met show, though, is it's kind of like the artist's last works, you know. So
yeah, a lot of them were for sure.
Oh,
yeah, I can't remember the catalog exactly, but I think they had a super late Titian that was like on the easel when he died and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
what other big names did they have there?
I can't remember what was in that show now, you know, because now you got to remember, so I'm having a hard time. But, but I flipped through the little catalog, and I remember thinking, wow, that's actually a really cool show to have. I'd love to see that stuff. You know, that's not what we are normally all about showing, although places like the Legion of Honor, they have that little Degas sketch. You could kind of call that unfinished because it's not really you know, it's just a little study thing and stuff. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw that.
I think it was near. It might have been in the same room of the
Bastien Lepage.
Yeah.
It's
across from the Jerome, the one with the slave.
Yeah, it's like two little horse riders, you know, and they're like colored in drawings. But the background's just stained, you know.
Yeah.
I've only been one, so it's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it's a cool museum for sure. Really cool. San Fran's cool. You know, I mean, they got good stuff. The De Young's fun. The Legion of Honor is really cool. So
yeah,
Yeah, they've had some pretty good shows lately. I mean, we were talking about the Klimt show. We've done a little segment on this podcast about it, but it's like, yeah, it was a tiny show, but it beats having to go all the way to Vienna to see some more Klimts.
Yeah.
In your opinion.
Well, yeah, it beat my wallet says.
Yeah, your wallet.
Yeah, your wallet agrees with you.
Yeah,
although it wasn't like it was that cheap a show.
I know, no kidding.
It's like, how many times would you have to go to the show before you could get a plane ticket to Vienna?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, awesome. So, I mean, you went to France, and it sounds like you're, guess, Italy. Yeah, sorry, and you're pro Atelier and prop.
Yeah. There's a lot of schools. My wife runs a website called Realist Art Resource, and on there we list a bunch of the schools. I think we have way over 100 now. It's
nice.
There's a lot of these. It's not just in the last 10 years. It's changed big time, and there's a ton of them. Each one is kind of different, and I don't love all the work from all of them or anything like that. I do know, and I do agree with what John Wen said, that if you are trying to get far fast and you really want to get better at drawing and painting, what these schools are offering and the price point they're offering at is just, it's not even competitive with universities. It just blows them away. Right. And they're flexible institutions. I just went back to school for half a trimester with Charles Cecil in November and December. He charged me almost nothing. I had the best time. I painted a couple portraits with them and was just a regular student. And
Nice.
And they let me go half day, universities, it's such an operation. You gotta register and do this and that. And it's kind of weird. I would say the biggest difference is, you go to these universities and you're taking drawing 1, then drawing 2, then painting 1, then painting 2. These schools, you kind of go through a set of assignments at your own pace with help the entire time, and that's just way more the way painting actually works.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you as far as because I feel like we've been bashing pretty much learning art in a, in a, I don't know, some kind of
in a formal setting.
Yeah, in a formal setting. And so as far as being in a formal setting, what do you think the advantages are as far as the ateliers or whatever way you would say is the right structure for learning to do art?
Well, I would hate to give you guys the impression that I wasn't going to bash on these schools because actually I'm not the biggest fan. I went to Florence Academy for 4 years. During those 4 years, I was a private student of a landscape painter who's originally from California named Mark D'Alessio. Probably spent a total of 24 hours on 5 separate occasions with the guy, and I got more in that time period and better at drawing and painting in that time period than I did 4 years at Florence Academy. The bigger academy schools, they almost have an incentive to slow you down. You're paying tuition. You're always like, well, I want to do this. They're like, whoa, slow down. It's like, yeah, I bet you think I should slow down because I'm paying you, not you paying me. Like this or whatever. When I did the private lessons with Mark D'Alessio, I did a still life with him, then a portrait with him, and then I painted outside with him. And I mean, I got 3 years better in 3 days. So that's the best deal there is out there. Find somebody who you really, really like. Beg them if you have to spend a couple afternoons with you. They can only do so much. They kind of got to teach you a little bit. Then you go off for a few months, work, bring the pictures back. Then they give you some help and then teach you another time and then send you back out. But that's the best deal for sure.
Was Mark a a teacher at the Florence Academy, or how did you meet him?
He is on and off. He sometimes is in charge of their, landscape painting summer school. He was in town living in Florence the same time as me. Everybody kind of knew him. He was definitely, at least on paper, kind of the most successful guy in town.
Okay.
His blog was really popular. He actually sold pictures, which was very different than a lot of my teachers.
Yeah.
Big difference. I knew Mark D'Alessio was the person that I wanted to go learn something from, because I was at a party one night and I saw like 4 people just ragging on him so hard, and I was like, "Oh, this Mark guy's really got these guys' panties in a twist. I got to check him out." And sure enough, I was like, "You are way better than those other guys, and this is really cool." And
Mark D'Alessio is a hell of a painter. He's one of the better plein air painters around, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the thing too is, I'm kind of into semantics, and I think of the words painting and art differently.
Okay.
Art is the content. Painting is the physical application of paint.
Okay.
Van Gogh is not my favorite painter. I think he's a really great artist. Bouguereau is not my favorite artist, but I think he's a pretty impressive painter. It's incredible. Mark, maybe I don't always love all of Mark's art, because it's really landscapey. I mean, he is like moved by being outside, and he paints landscapes, and I like people and stuff. But But he's so square in a funny way. Like, could you learn from anybody better who just is painting, his trees are that tree exactly, his sky is that sky exactly, and he definitely helped me a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
When he comes to paint to California, those are always my favorite. He did this picture a few years ago of a street in Tahoe.
Okay.
And I just remember being like, God damn, that is like Tahoe exactly. I could go find the street probably just off his painting,
Yeah, he did the Carmel Art Festival a few years ago for some reason. And he just nailed these pictures of looking over the cliffs in Monterey. You see that sky is that sky there.
Yeah.
That grass is that grass right there.
Yeah.
And they're pretty decent sized paintings. They're the one he did that he submitted for the show was probably what's his normal size, like 20 by 24 or something like that.
Yeah. He does some bigger ones and a lot of 8 by 12 inches, which is basically 20 by 30 cm and stuff. Okay. But he does paint bigger things outside, which not a lot of people do, really,
Not a lot of people do well, I would say.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, totally.
I've seen a lot of schlocky big paintings.
Big paintings, yeah.
They're impressive because they're
huge
on a giant canvas.
Yeah.
Is schlocky a racial slur?
No comment.
So it's good to know that you're one of us, one of the anti-schoolers. Suck it, Sergio. I'm just kidding.
I'd say he's more on my side than your side. What was I going to say? But you had a good time studying in Italy. It seems like a different place than the States for sure. As far as you were telling me once. It's an interesting sort of you have these different types of freedoms there almost.
Yeah. It's not.
But America's the freest place in the world.
You would think that, wouldn't you? No.
USA.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, we don't want to get too macro about Italy's political situation, but I once heard that Italy listens to more phone calls than any other country in Europe.
Really?
Totally believe that. The thing is, there isn't this groundswell of people that are so paranoid that the government's going to take over. They all know the government. The government's fairly incompetent. They can't take over the people. What are you doing? So they really do believe, they're listening to phone calls? Okay, well, they're listening to the bad guys. I don't care. Even if you're a low-level drug dealer or something like that, you're not worried about, the cops listening to you. They still have to come do something about it, and so it's not going to happen, so. But then there's other things. I mean, my favorite rapper is this Italian guy named Fabri Fibra, and he's got this part in a song where he talks about how he's had this basement at his house for years and he wants to fix it up into a studio, and the comune won't let him like touch anything like that. And then you think, God, that's really hard. He owns his house. Let the guy have a studio, like this. So they're strict about some things and not about others. And, it's a very laissez-faire place, but cool.
Yeah,
fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You met a lot of people that you're still in touch with out there, it seems like.
Yeah, staying in touch with people, you do have to make kind of an effort, and maybe for selfish reasons, my Italian friends I really try and stay in touch with because I know I'm going to go back at some point, and I know I'm going to need a place to stay and things like that. But there's a lot of really cool stuff going on there, and I have friends that run a residency there that is a really cool opportunity for some painters. It's called Il Palmerino. It's it was the home of this female writer who was Sargent's best friend when he was growing up, because Sargent's actually from Florence. Yeah. There's a lot of moving and shaking there now with the new schools too. There's a Russian school run by Rep and Academy graduates, and now there's a Chinese school, and both of them have it's not like they have so much money to do stuff, but they're very serious players there. They both have a lot of students and are doing cool stuff. The Russian school had people like Antonio Lopez Garcia come give a workshop. That's way up the list, you know.
For sure.
So it's a cool place,
Where did
That's awesome.
The Chinese school, Chinese students of the Rep and Academy?
Yeah. They're not totally a school. It's kind of this cultural exchange opportunity. They're taking a couple cool teachers and painters from Italy, taking them to China, bringing cool European painters to Florence to teach Chinese students. They just had an Odd Nerdrum workshop. The makeup of the student body was some of their own Chinese students, some emerging Chinese artists, and then some very successful Chinese artists all coming to do a workshop and stuff. So it's a super cool, interesting thing. Good parties too. I went to all their parties when I was there. Very cool, very cool.
Did they play your favorite rapper?
No, but they poured out those guys like to drink and smoke, so it was a party for sure.
Nice. So they like to drink, to stay hydrated and smoke turkeys.
Yeah, totally.
Smoke turkeys. Yeah.
Nice, awesome. They'd fit in America. So you're in Italy, and then you move back to America.
Yeah.
But so you make it back to America, and where's your first stop in America? You go back to Colorado?
No, actually I went to New Orleans first.
Nice.
And it wasn't really a good fit. I had a hard time. There was really no other painters I kind of clicked with. It wasn't the best place to paint outside.
Because of the beads and boobs?
Yeah. No, but it was just Mardi Gras. Huh? No, just general. It's an interesting town. I really do like it, and I'm there probably once a year and stuff. But as a place to live, it's a little bit of a bubble. You're not really participating in the real world. Their art scene is a local art scene. It's just New Orleans artists that are famous in New Orleans and only do New Orleans stuff. There's very few in visual arts. There are very few crossover hits. People that were successful in New Orleans that are showing in LA or New York or something like that. I also learned a really valuable lesson. I always thought you wanted to be going to the parties that where all the artists were. So I went to all these parties in New Orleans and it was nothing but artists. And
Right.
after a while, I realized that doesn't get you anywhere. And now I go to parties where I'm the only artist. And it's much better. Much
That
better.
makes sense.
Yeah. You know.
For networking, for sure.
Exactly, like, you know, and it was kind of, I have to say, I don't want to knock anything, but like there was a lot of what I call kind of slice of the pie-ism. One more person comes to town and they think that their market is this limited pie, and that you took a slice, and that's like you took it right out of their mouth or something.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe that's the way things work.
Not
I mean,
at
the
all.
more people come, the more pie gets brought. Florence is a perfect example. Because there's 3 schools there, there's now 8 schools there.
Yeah.
And tons of students and the best art store in the world and things like that, just because all the action's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that mentality is like prevalent in a lot of places.
For sure.
You know,
It was palpable there.
oh, really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure somebody said, "Drop my slice of pie."
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about the other day about how, like, we both think that a rising tide
Lifts all boats,
lifts all
man.
boats
Yeah.
because, like,
Yeah.
you're saying that you were telling me the other day, you're like, I want my artist friends to be successful.
Successful,
They
yeah.
can introduce me to other
Cool people, yeah, no,
We'll buy my pen.
totally, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, there's
Oh.
definitely a lot of artists that get jealous of an artist getting a show, and you're like,
Nah, man, you don't get jealous. You ask for an invitation to go to the show, you know, and how many girls are going, like that, like, you know,
how much pie is there going to be?
yeah, totally, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of goofy. It's against human nature to think the rising tide way, but the way I mean, you're talking about networking, kind of an interesting way. The way that stuff works, it's too complicated to think it's as binary as yes or no. There's 5 of us and 4 buyers in town, so someone's
Right.
in trouble. It's way more complicated. I think Instagram is kind of a good example that's showing people how big and complicated it is, because
Right.
now we're even more tangled because I'm in communication with cool painters in all sorts of crazy places and stuff, and that's what makes stuff better.
I think I was talking, I don't know if, I'm pretty sure you were there, where we were talking about like the comedians, you know, and just talking about the comedians community, and they kind of...
Oh, yeah. We're talking about with John after the show, yeah.
Yeah, and how they've kind of like slowly built this huge community. And I think comedy's always been big, but within the last couple of years, it's gotten so huge and so credible. And it's not one person eating all this pie. It's you know, it's all of them bringing each other up. Yeah. And you see that community and you go, wow. I mean, it just kind of makes you think of how powerful, you know, a group of people can be if they all work together.
Totally. It's exponentially more interesting, more powerful, pulls more credibility, you know.
Yeah.
It's I think the comedian analogy is good. The other thing that happens with artists that's kind of like what you're talking about with comedians. I don't know a million comedians, but I imagine that if in the middle of that group of comedians there is this other comedian who's a little strange, maybe not as commercially viable, but if you're way into comedy, you're impressed because you're like, no, this is cutting edge.
Right.
That person is safer because he's got all these people around him that be like, you know, maybe the consumer and the buyer right now doesn't totally get this, but we're all into comedy. We all think he's great. We're all going to keep him okay for a while, and if he doesn't become a big thing until he's 60, that's fine, you know.
Right. It's like
I know what
the
Zach
comedian's
Galifianakis
comedian.
was. Yeah. for a
Yeah,
long
crazy.
time.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that applies to a lot of art forms.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know as far as like rap, MF Doom has been like the rapper's rapper, you know?
Oh,
Exactly.
And it's just because the market or the amount of fans of rap is so huge that he gets to eat. And you know, And I think that applies to artists. Artists definitely have like the artist that you wonder why they're not as successful as they should be. You're like, why doesn't this person have 1 billion followers on Instagram?
Oh, definitely.
They're so good. But it just is what it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Trying to figure it out.
I have not encountered much slice of the pieism on the West Coast at all.
Do you see it more on the East Coast then?
New York is kind of its own animal, and in a lot of ways, New York has this, 20th century tradition. I guess they would tell you abstract expressionism was born there and things like this. It all's kind of a monkey on their back, and their collectors are such a small group of such people that are famous for collecting and things. California has just never been like that for me. I mean, I can say nothing but good things about California. Number one, it's such a good place for painters that there's no place in the country where if you see somebody painting on the side of the road in California, they're probably pretty good. Like, you're like, oh shit, that guy's good. Like, I bet I know him, what's your name? Because you're awesome, like this or whatever. And I don't think, I just feel like the galleries in LA and stuff like that have just operated in a much more transparent kind of open way. I mean, all the ones in LA that are so cool, like Arcadia and Maxwell Alexander and all those things like that, I'm not jealous that I'm not in it. I totally get it because I think what they're picking is super cool. It was only in New York where I saw things and I was like, I'm kind of bummed that I'm not really in a gallery because if these guys can be in it, then there's no reason I shouldn't be. So, and quite a few of those New York galleries I think have moved like towards the West Coast.
Arcadia came from New York.
Now they're probably moving for the weather or something, but
Maybe,
but I mean, if I were going to open a gallery tomorrow, I mean, or even a school or something like that, I think Bay Area, LA, I mean, California kind of has a really good. The painters in California, if you look at the list of people that live and paint in California, it's like really good. It's like all my favorite painters live in California,
Oh, really?
So it kind of makes sense. It's a rising tide lifting all boats, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I haven't ever spent any time on the East Coast, but there are pockets of the West Coast that are very inclusive. One of the things that would be nice about making this podcast grow is to kind of make the Bay Area scene a bit more well-known outside of it.
Yeah, but there's cool stuff. I mean, if you think I'm giving this from my point of view, because what I have different from your other guests is keeping track and knowing all these different schools. But there's pretty many in San Fran. You have Andy Amaral at Golden Gate Atelier, which is a cool school. That one Baca, you have Justin Hess's school. Like, I mean, there's like
Sadie's Atelier. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's just called Sadie Valeria or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there's 4 right there, and San Fran's not huge,
right.
So I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so I guess what you're trying to say is like, if you don't want your galleries all up in your movies, all in your music videos, come to West Coast, Death Row for life. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, cool. So you just Suge Knighted this whole thing. He has a baseball bat in his hands.
Yeah, right now.
And a stripper on his lap. You're a married man.
I know.
So I was going to ask you. You were saying before where you're saying that people who go to the schools in Florence or Europe, I guess in general, they tell you they kind of come back or they go to the schools from the States, study there in Italy, and then come back to the States to kind of make their name as artists. Is that kind of what you had in mind, what you were going to do, or did you have something else?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I ever seriously considered moving to Italy. It's pretty hard to do, and my Italian's kind of not great, and The financial implications are pretty serious. It's a lot easier if you're American to just stay American and pay your taxes in America, you know.
Yeah.
Buying a house in Italy is pretty hard and stuff.
Is it?
But yeah, I think I was always going to kind of go there and then come back and then do what I'm really going to do in the States, because you can't really do, you know, you guys have talked about this in a couple different of the podcasts, you know, you have to shake off that art school. Well, at the schools in Florence, you're not really doing your thing while you're there. So you're doing school work, you know, and then you graduate from school. So you need to go. America is weirdly a safe place where you can go lay low for a year or two, figure out what it is you actually maybe want to do. Yeah. And then, you know, try and be commercial about it and try and get your name out there and be like, this is what I do and stuff. So I still haven't figured out what I'm going to do, though.
Said every artist always.
Exactly. So I'm not worried.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. When you said your Italian was bad, I instantly thought of Inglourious Bastards, or where Brad Pitt pretends to be
Italian. Yeah. It's a super cool language, and I really like it. Every day I listen to Fabri Fibra and episodes of Peppa Pig in Italian to practice.
I have no knowledge of
it. It's a children's show.
Yeah,
super. It's for like 1-year-olds. Italian's fascinating. Once you get a little somewhere with the language, then it really unlocks a lot of the culture for you. Also, you know, when you're traveling around and painting, you're a foreigner, but you end up in all these places that are really kind of normal or suburban and stuff, and people are so nice to you out there because they're like, what are you doing here? You're not in downtown Rome, downtown Florence, downtown Milan. You're like out here in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, oh no, but I like Italy. It's a cool spot. They're like, yeah, it is cool. You know?
Yeah.
And another great thing about Italy, you can get in a fight or a honking match with anybody, anywhere. There's like no repercussions. Nobody's going to shoot you like this. You could be, I mean, it doesn't chill people out, but you know, I mean, in America, I'm kind of like honking at people, and in Italy, I'm like swerving around, honking. I'm like, what, are you crazy? Like this. Meet me over on the other corner like this. We'll fight it out. I saw a pretty crazy road rage incident there when I was just there in December. Yeah. And, this guy like smacked this car. It was they have a little bit of a thing with like machismo like this, you know.
So I've heard about those Italian men.
I know. And he like banged this car and then tried to pretend his arm wasn't broken, you know, and like, tried to drive off like this. The poor delivery driver, you know, but, you know, it's those cities are dense and it's real humanity. Everybody on top of each other like that. So
I mean,
I've seen some of those streets. You try to go up an alleyway with a box truck, and
no way, dude.
Holding on for
I've seen some parking. There's some parking heroes in Italy. I've seen people do amazing things. It's like, wow, what do they pay you to be able to park like that on an uphill with a stick? You know, like.
Yeah, for sure. They should become stunt drivers or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in Australia, I kind of noticed a similar thing as far as like the lack of guns. So I thought it was like kind of it would edit people's actions because you don't have to worry about a gun. So first of all, you can start a fight with whoever, but second of all, they like to fight there. So if you don't know how to fight,
you're in big trouble.
You're gonna get your ass kicked. So either you know how to fight and you're willing to like prove you're the baddest person there, or you don't, and you don't fucking act tough, you know?
You know, I don't think it's an issue of right or wrong because you shouldn't be fighting and stuff like that anyways. However, there is a type of human nature that's never going to go away.
It's our ape brain.
Exactly, like this. So why arm the general public the way we have when you know that, you know, twice a year, every dude between the age of 25 and 35 is like pissed off or something, you know, I mean, and there's bad guys there too, but you know, it's just, I don't know, the volume's just turned down on so much stuff like that, and you can just kind of work. I mean, I don't like nightscaping in downtown Denver in the middle of the night, but in Italy, I mean, I'll do it with like, you know, $100 in my pocket, no problem, walking around in the middle of the night. Nobody who's gonna mess with you. And there's people everywhere. If somebody starts messing with you, you start screaming, "Someone's messing with me," like this, and there's someone around, you know. So,
will somebody come help you if you?
Well, I don't know. Do you look cool? What's in it for them?
Yeah,
you know, maybe. How pretty a girl are you? Like
that's true.
You know?
Well, I'm a gorgeous girl.
I know, so. But
I think you meant you looked good in a thong in the last episode.
Well, it's true.
So
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
you don't have to take my word for it.
The art differences aren't always as obvious as the general cultural differences. I don't think one side should be jealous of the other side in any way, because on one hand, people are a little more free to do whatever they want painting-wise in Italy, but at the same time, they're all pretty. I mean, my Italian friends that have been painters for years and years, I mean, they have more to be jealous of us for, because, I mean, it's a lot easier to sell pictures in the States. Not that it's easy, but it's easier to sell pictures in the States.
Oh, wow.
People, I mean, everybody in Italy who really likes art already has mountains of it. And oftentimes names. A lot of people don't realize that the 19th century Italian painters were as great as they were. There's a huge body of collectors there that are dealing just in 19th century Italian painting. If someone is so into representational painting, there's a chance you go to their house and they have like museum people at their house already, so they don't really need new paintings.
Right.
If you have $5,000 to spend on a painting in Italy, you can either get kind of a new painting that's pretty good, or you can go to one of these auction houses, of which there are a lot, and bid on, you know, some real work. And that makes it really hard to make it as a painter in Italy.
Oh man!
Because why would you buy blankety blank when you can get? I mean, there's when I was there this time, I saw two Mancini pictures get auctioned off.
Right, you were telling me,
and they were so good. They were incredible paintings. So.
So I guess where's a country we can go to where they have millions of dollars and they just they hate old shit and they love specifically mine and Sergio stuff?
Dubai, Arab Emirates, places like that.
I'm cool off of that.
Yeah. What's really fascinating, and I was talking about this with someone at Florence Academy, after looking at the analytics of my little Instagram followers and stuff, and also looking at Florence Academy's followers, we all have just mountains of people from Iran. So
me too.
So something's going on in Iran right now where they're kind of very interested in Western traditional painting. You know, we've noticed with our own.
I always thought it's because I used to post a lot at like 2 or 3 in the morning. So that's when all the Iranian people are up and looking at their thing.
No, it's crazy. They follow all the school accounts, the Florence Academy school accounts, all the other school accounts. If you look, it's a ton of people from Iran. And I think the appeal is similar to why you know, the Mormons in the States have a real following and are really engaged with traditional painting. I think it's now it's fairly conservative. You know, if you think it's traditional painting, you know, there's pictures of stuff, and Iran, I can't picture them buying, you know, splatter paintings from New York homosexuals or something like this. So they like the traditional painting and they're impressed with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of students there doing stuff. Something's going to happen. Yeah, some cool people are going to get to go to Iran in the next 10 years and go and realize that their classes with hundreds of kids in them wanting to learn to draw and paint really well.
That's cool. That's going to be you.
I would take an invitation to anywhere, including Iran. I'm always for it.
Awesome. I mean, that's the Middle East just seems to be very engaged in social media as far as
that's true.
Totally, yeah. I mean, hopefully their involvement in Instagram isn't a sign of how oppressed they are at home, because like the only place where they can really look at what they like is on Instagram or something like that. I don't get that feeling. I don't
think so either.
Yeah, I think they're teachers at the school in Iran that have enough sense to be like, look, I'll show you this stuff, but you should really go on Insta, because man, all over the world they're good painters right now, you know.
Yeah, a lot of the people that are on social media that'll talk to me that are from like the Middle East, they don't seem like they seem pretty well off for the most part, especially the people from Dubai and that part of the world.
Totally. Well, if you have a phone that is some sort of an economic indicator, because right. You know, the kid in the middle of nowhere, Morocco or whatever, they're just getting phones now.
Right. But even like, you know, like Iran and especially like Dubai, they've kind of been killing it for a while. And they do seem like they're kind of leaning towards this weird, like, I don't know, mix between like traditional ways and like almost American with their confidence.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's this weird combination they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely some shitty things about the Middle East. I'm not going to fucking...
Well, do you think they might make better fans of representational or traditional oil painting? Yeah, do you think they'll make better fans and participators in the world of traditional painting because it's not part of their own history and tradition, so they're coming at it kind of without this a burdensome history. The
right,
opposite example is Italy. Right now in Italy, all the people painting traditionally are actually, for the most part, either foreign or foreign trained, because Italy itself hates traditional painting because they're up to their neck in like old paintings. So they think the coolest thing in the world is like a super slick couch and an all white thing, because who has that? My grandma has, you know, hundreds of 19th century good artwork. That's not cool,
right?
You know, but in places in the Middle East and the Islamic countries, they don't even really have much of a history of pictorial art. So it's new to them, and I'm honored that they think traditional painting is so cool, because I think it is too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it might be the case of like, they see that the new cool thing, because they're all plugged into social media, and so they're looking at the new artists that are out now. We're all sort of doing this representational art, but putting a contemporary spin on most of it.
Yeah.
And so they might think that that's what's the new
cool thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think so. And I actually think that's true. I mean,
yeah. We were actually talking about how we were saying that, like, both Judson and I are huge fans of 19th century art, but also big fans of what's going on right at this moment, as opposed to what was really going on in the 20th century.
Right.
And I think you agree with that too.
Yeah, I think
maybe
so.
Aside from the 19th century part, but other than like what's interesting right now in painting is definitely not what was happening 20 years ago. It's what's happening right now.
Right now.
And it just keeps getting better and better because of things like social media sort of raising the bar for everyone.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think like when you look back on like art, there's always these like little pockets where all these geniuses seem to come out of, you know? And then with social media, it seems like we're just now this humongous pocket that, where we're all kind of feeding each other and working off each other and creating amazing works of art. And the growth in each artist. We're not necessarily copying each other, but we're just growing. Like it's like a friendly competition almost in a way, but not really. But
yeah, it's kind of a meritocracy almost because
Agreed, yeah.
other than the people who figured out the algorithm and figure out how to get likes for bullshit
for painting eyeballs.
Yeah, those charcoal drawings of eyeballs. I just saw another one of those today. But other than that, it's like the people who are actually popular on Instagram, who are doing like good work, actually deserve to be popular.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I think representational and traditional painting is kind of a meritocracy already. It's like, do I care that Jeremy Lipking is more popular than me? No, he is exactly more popular than me, then he is better than me, which is a lot, like that. That's nice. It's modern art where you have to be like, come on, you picked his triangles over my triangles. My triangles are just as good. Like,
I think what I mean by competition is almost like you get fed so many artists that are like doing amazing things that it gives us this false reality that they're all working while you're not. So it just pushes you to just work harder. It's like bringing back a work ethic to like no more drawing triangles and chilling.
Well, I was listening to this thing and they were talking about, everybody likes to talk about how the country got so divided and social media's, hand in that and stuff. And I think what's really fascinating is they were describing the echo chamber. So you're kind of right wing, so you only follow right wing people, and then all this, and all of a sudden everything's right wing and all this. Okay. What's funny is for painters, I think there's an echo chamber, but it's a good thing. So I'm in there, and then I get to see the things I'm interested in because I chose to follow them, and I see Pete the Street or like Martin Yeoman or something, and then they comment on each other's thing and comment on my things, and it's the chamber echoes, and it's like, this is great, everybody's into this,
for sure. It is awesome. And then when you have something like Instagram where there's this huge community of people that like art and that do art, and then you follow a bunch of artists and all artists follow you, and then you kind of get this weird feedback through likes where, I mean, we were talking shit about it last week, but it does kind of, when you see someone that you respect like something that you think is good or the direction you're going, it kind of feeds that, I don't know, that it's like a pat on the back as far as like, I think I'm going the right way.
Yeah, I mean, it happened to me the other day because I got like a thumbs up from Nicholas Uribe. And it like made my whole afternoon. I was like, this guy is so awesome, and he gets me. Nobody else gets me, but he gets it. This guy, I'll just keep going. And the value in that too is now you don't have to be in the 19th century. If you wanted to participate, you kind of had to be in Paris to participate. Now, I mean, if you're in dire circumstances or you're super young and you still live with your parents and that just happens to be in like Kansas City, Missouri or something like that, there's actually nothing keeping you from participating in the whole world of painting because now the whole world's on Insta anyway. So, so you could still become the most famous painter ever. You see it in the rappers. Look at Chief Keef's story. I mean, it's crazy. Somebody's totally could do that painting. Where it was like, I was posting some stuff and all these cool people thought it was really cool, so I got a little more emboldened, and then I decided to go to school somewhere. It's really cool.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday about this kid. He designs sneakers, and he's 19 years old, and he decided to reach out to that comedian Chris D'Elia. And he just and Chris D'Elia just happened to like what he did, and it just blew up from there. And now he like flew out to L.A. to meet all these other comedians too. And he's like, I just grew up like hustling, just selling like candies in school, and that turned into like selling sneakers. And he's only 19, but he's got like all these plans of doing stuff.
I mean, that's too young. I don't want anyone young being successful.
But
they're not painting.
But it's still. I still think that's a meritocracy because, I mean, it got liked because the guy was like, oh, this is kind of good. It shouldn't matter how old he is. Certainly in painting, it shouldn't matter. And there's been a couple attempts lately in the world of painting to, like, make a young phenom and things like that. And I don't know how good for the kid or the other stuff that is to be, like, giving, you know, a keynote speech at some giant conference when you're 16 seems a little weird or whatever.
I think it's always really good to get like kids really famous, really young. It's
always works out great. Yeah,
super great.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know Michael, right?
I mean, it's great for rehab facilities.
So it's the Insta thing, you know, it's easy to point out everything that's bad about it. I know that overall it's a good system because my friend Enrico Suzani, who I met kind of recently and stuff like this, he's got to be 65 or 70. He's in Italy. He was like, I thought I was the only one. Well, now he's on Insta and he follows all these really cool people and he's like really popular account and everybody loves him and it's a dream come true. He never thought he was going to be in contact with 25-year-old foreign students in another city telling him that his landscape sketch was like the coolest thing they'd ever seen. He was not expecting anything like that in his life. He was, by the time he was 50, he was like, well, I guess I'm going to do this in anonymity like that. And now it's cool, you know, so.
Yeah.
And it's cool because he's actually good. So people actually realize he's actually good, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing that comes with social media. It definitely seems like the cream rises to the top.
Yeah.
You know, you can't sell your triangles to, I mean, not trying to talk shit about any of that, but even like abstract artists, I feel like that are pretty good on, like, that I think are good or also seem to be the ones that, you know, have some success.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, here's where it becomes super valuable. If somebody came up to me and, you know, money was no object and they were about to move into a mansion and things like that, and the people, we should be happy and the gallery should be a little bit nervous. My advice to that person, if they decided they were going to start buying painting, is, look, go on to Insta, spend a year following people, looking at stuff, liking it, following a couple careers and this and that. And then after a year of that, then you buy some paintings. And you go to where the people who you like are selling paintings.
Yeah.
This is actually kind of contrary to the way galleries have worked until now. Each gallery is trying to serve their little area. Right. So like I was in New Orleans. The galleries there are really hand in hand with the world of second home ownership and interior decoration. Okay. And if you're moving into a new apartment in the French Quarter, you get a New Orleans interior decorator, and then you go to a New Orleans gallery for your New Orleans paintings for your New Orleans house.
Okay.
This has actually not worked out very well because you can't trust the gallery to bring you the best of the best, not the best of New Orleans and not the best of the world. That same person could spend a year on Instagram, could end up with a whole bunch of paintings that if Sergio and I were to then go to their house afterwards, we would walk around and be like, okay, so what's the deal? How come you got such good taste and you know all this awesome stuff? You know, like what, did you hire somebody to help you? Like, what's the deal? This is so awesome. And I mean, someone could really do that.
Yeah, for sure.
It would work. It'd be good for everybody. They would buy, they would follow Sergio's account. They would decide they liked it. They would buy what they liked. It doesn't matter what venue is selling it. If it's you or a gallery, they would go to the place that had the painting they wanted.
Yeah.
And that would be so much better for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. Just as long as they follow through, I feel like I'm always telling people, like, just contact this gallery. Here's the contact, and then it's like crickets.
Yeah.
Like, how interested were you? But yeah. I mean, that is the model that I mean, if I had a endless amount of money, I'd probably go that route. Is I already know the artist I really, really, really like, and I would just go and figure out what painting they did.
That you wanted. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And then go that route. And I'm sure there's probably a few smart people out there doing that.
Yeah.
The rest of you guys are idiots.
No.
Wake up.
Yeah. Well, no, the only thing you can do that's like not smart is go into a gallery and ask them what they think you should buy.
Yeah.
That's like the worst thing you could ever do. You trust me, like, this one we haven't been able to get rid of for years. You should buy this one.
This one's the most expensive.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no.
Gallery owners must salivate when they see people like that.
I know. It happens all the time.
I'm sure.
Though, all the time. And I don't mean to rag on the galleries or anything, but I have yet to be in one that I thought was truly curated to the highest level. Mm-hmm. It is possible if somebody really knew what they were doing, they could get a gallery. So they take artists, right? And then they end up with all this artist work, and they have good paintings from that person and bad paintings or whatever. Why not a gallery that just gets the best stuff? A gallery where you cannot get something bad. It doesn't matter how terrible your taste is. Mm-hmm. You walk in there, you're going to walk out with something good because they only have, I don't know the names, they only have the 4 from Jeremy Lipking that are the best, the 4 from Jeremy Mann that are the best, the 4 from this person that are the best, and you can't walk out with a bad picture. But instead with these solo shows, like solo shows are kind of goofy because we've all gone to them and been like, oh, 1 through 5 is amazing. And the other 10, I don't know about those. Right. So don't have a solo show, have a group show. Group shows I found are on the whole way more impressive.
But the only issue I have with group shows are that they usually are also curated to an idea that, like the concept comes from the gallery. They say, "Oh, paint."
Yeah.
And then the artist has to then figure that out. And I don't know. As an artist, I'm not that big into that.
Yeah, totally.
It's almost like I wish all group shows were just like, just paint
what you want.
Yeah.
Bring in your best one.
Yeah. Paint the best thing you can.
Yeah. No.
I think that good galleries do it more that way.
I think so, but I mean, even if I think back to like the galleries I think are good, even they're guilty of some of that, it's
probably a balance for the galleries as well to figure out.
Yeah, and there's some galleries that also I think they should know better. I'm like, come on, you know better. You know better than that.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I mean,
yeah, it's a goofy business model.
Yeah.
I don't think if my son grows up and is a painter, I don't think he's going to be operating under the same business model. Mm. It's been a long time now.
I do kind of like the whole, like, maybe do like 4 artists. Like, I'm part of the show in April and it's 4 artists.
Yeah.
So you only have to take up like, a small section, and you can do a group of work that's cohesive, but you're not like killing yourself trying to fill walls.
Yeah. There's different types of group shows. Yeah, and I prefer much more 4 artists do 6 or so paintings rather than 40 artists do 1 painting.
Yeah. I mean, I like both. I've gone to shows where there's a shit ton of artists and I'm just like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Where it's not like competing, it's just everyone did the best thing. And then you're like, Good.
Well, that's what I like about the Moleskine show.
Yeah, that's a really cool one for sure.
And they have that one, like, what is it, like Supersonic?
The Supersonic Invitational. Yeah,
that one's always really good too.
Yeah, that's curated by Zach, who definitely has a specific taste, but he lets people do whatever they want. The curation is in the artist that he puts together.
That's always the key, it seems like. Let the artist do what they do and not try to push your ideas on them.
Yeah, the Moleskine show, I mean, what's so impressive? When I look at it, I like the artwork, but I'm not saying this set of artwork is so impressive. I look at the list of names and I say, wow, this is someone who's actually paying attention to who's cool now and is showing me who's cool now. So that makes sense to me.
And not even cool as in, it's almost like who's killing it now. You know?
Yeah. I mean, but those are also the people. I mean, when I use Instagram every single day, I do get sad a little bit because I want to see some of these things in person, and they are real objects. So you don't all. You know, sometimes it's a surprise, sometimes it's a good surprise, sometimes it's a bad surprise when you see these things in person. The Moleskine show gives you a really cool opportunity to see people who I've followed on Insta, and I'd love to see something in person. And then you go and you see it, and you're like, "This is in person! Like that's so cool! Now I get to see it." Yeah,
that's true. And I another thing with the Moleskine show specifically is that it's like the perfect group show concept. It's just like, we're going to give you a thing that you paint on, and it's not format, like a fucking like a doll or a or a chair or whatever. It's something an artist is very familiar with, and then you go and you do whatever you want. There's no extras. It's just paint on this surface.
Yeah. The palette show at, what is that, a Bend in Denver or whatever. That's another one that's kind of a cool, like the list of names are always kind of people, I always wanted to see one of theirs. I always want to see.
True.
And I guess on one hand you say, that's such a gimmick, like the Moleskine. Yeah. But actually for a gimmick, it doesn't, I think it's more restricting when you have one of these shows where you're like, well, everybody has to do 12 by 12 squares or something. It's way less restrictive to say, like, do it on a crazy palette or do it in a Moleskine. I mean, that's kind of cool.
But even if they do it on a 12 by 12, I don't mind that. I mind the things where it's like, the show is like theme, like some kind of theme.
Yeah, I always think, too, like, when you say painting on something, it hasn't every American city had that like fundraiser where they have some sculptures and they gave to the local artists and they painted.
We don't have that here in Santa Rosa.
I don't know. I think there was one a few years ago. Was it painted Peanuts figures?
Never heard of it.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah.
He knows.
Yeah. No, it wasn't. It was like pigs in Cincinnati, and then I went to New Orleans, and it was like alligators.
Hearts
and I was
San
like,
Francisco.
is this like a national conspiracy or something?
It's the most original idea ever.
Yeah. Same with the museums having shows where florists come and make a flower arrangement, and then new painters come and hang a painting near it. There has been a lot of this at American museums. Like every museum has had their
I have heard of that
show. I know, it's crazy. It's like every museum.
Wait, so they get a florist and then
so they'll hang up like bouquets everywhere like that, and then in between the bouquets people put somewhat like applicable paintings. So it'll be like a guy painted some girl with flowers, and then a flower arranger made some flowers that kind of matched it. I've seen it done with both new painters and where they'll like take things out of their permanent collection, and it's like a Rembrandt, a bouquet, a Boucher, a bouquet, like that. It's like kind of a goofy thing, but they all do it. It's like they're all on the same email list. Like, I can't believe it worked,
I forget what we were talking about. It's something about hacky things.
Right.
It's like now that's like museum hack.
Totally.
Shows.
Yeah.
But like the comedians, they've kind of been pushing against that for a long time.
Right.
But I feel like the artists, we've kind of been quiet about shit like that. And I don't know. Some of it's not. It's like you're. Like you all kind of, a lot of times, like there seems to be like this new thing everyone just seems to be doing. Like, I don't know, the last couple of years, people have been doing the multiple eye, like everything's like off center. It kind of hurts to look at. Like it makes you get a headache or whatever.
Yeah. And before that, it was like girls with things on their head.
Yeah. And I'm definitely guilty of that one. I mean,
I've done a few of those.
And then, it's just like, it's like these things where, I don't know who started it or whatever, but or if it's like everyone just kind of started at the same time. It's like just like the comedian thing, you could just assume that we're going to hear like a million Trump jokes within the next 4 years. It's just kind of what happens.
Right.
But then you'll hear comedians talk about how that's hacky. You know, it's just and with social media, you kind of see it a lot too. Where I think we talked about like the artists that are really good seem to be really successful, and then except for the ones that seem to, you know, they kind of have the algorithm on lock, but there's also like the eyeball drawer and you know, like there's these people that they do, you know, they paint like nothing but like Rihanna and Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, totally.
I know the Morgan Freeman
hyper realistic charcoal drawings. Yeah.
How about over life-size heads of people with stuff poured on their faces? Because I actually went through at one point and found like 20 accounts that were the same thing. Yeah,
it's like honey and stuff.
Honey or milk. Milk's probably you can't. You're nobody if you don't do milk like this. But I mean, and it's always done by like either a hot guy or a hot girl, and they're always in the picture with it like that. But there was like a lot of accounts that were the same, and after a while, like the first guy I saw, I was like, you know, not for me. We live in a very, if you know that big like Chuck Close self-portrait or whatever he did in the 70s. We live in a post-that painting world where
you don't
people
talk about Chuck Close or Monty. We'll hunt you down.
Like over life-size heads. But then I started noticing a lot with like, you know, stuff, girls with stuff poured on them, and it was a whole thing.
Yeah, I think photographers also have to deal with that too, because they're, for the most part, all concept. So,
true. Yeah.
So certain concepts come up over and over again. And actually, somebody in my Facebook feed was saying that she's a photographer. She goes like, I was scrolling through my feed, and I thought the same photographer posted like 10 times in a row. It was just the same sort of thing over and over again.
Yeah, they have a lot of girls in bathtubs with especially with like milky water,
some sort of coloring in the water.
I remember someone sent me some video about like some photographer doing that. Like, have you seen this? I'm like, 1,000,000 times.
Exactly.
That's nothing new. But the people were kind of explaining it like, we just thought like, what if you put milk and water and then you're just like, oh yeah, were you the first to think about that? Cool story.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, if you spend all day trying not to do something that's part of some sort of trend or whatever.
Right.
I mean, painting to me is really different than all that because, I mean, when I have a student, every now and then I have students, and I mean, the first thing I tell them is, look, the piano we have today is kind of close to the piano Mozart had. It's not that different.
Right.
If you play on this, then you're kind of playing in the same game arena as him. So you can directly compare yourself, and that's kind of scary.
Right.
The point of traditional oil painting is to use materials and stuff that are the same that everybody else has used so that you can play the same instrument and do your own thing, and people can realize how much it is your own thing.
Right.
And photographers have it, but at the same time, what they do is so technical. Like, it's such a different world that, you know, and they have a lot of, I mean, photographers have a lot of commercial possibilities. I mean, there's a wedding photographer in downtown Santa Rosa. I bet they make money, you know, like this. There's 8 million weddings around here.
Yeah, exactly.
Painters always have that weird thing where it's really, really hard to find revenue streams, which is one reason we just listed our 120th school on Realist Art Resource, because, I mean, it's hard to scratch up some money, like, no matter what you're doing. You know?
I mean, I forget who I told that something similar to that was like, if I wanted to be a successful or working artist, I would just gone in graphic design. No, or like, what was it? Someone was telling me, they asked me, you ever think about doing, I can't remember, it was something like commissioned work or something like that, and I was like, I mean, like, if I wanted to do that, I would just go into like graphic design or like even like tattooing or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And you know you're going to get like a steady paycheck. but that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
So
the tattoo people, though,
oh yeah, we were just talking about this.
They are our friends. Deep down inside, I don't think there's not a tattoo person that I don't actually like agree with on most things.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all really into what they do. They like what we do.
Right.
They're friends. I'm happy for them because my tattoo friends get great paychecks, you know, and I'm like, that's so awesome and stuff. We should switch for a week, you know, or something. But, I mean, there's somebody, I think, like, if you take a lot of these tattoo people, they're totally on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
You know?
And I don't think, even graphic designers, I don't think they're necessarily that far from us, but I think the only thing I mean is as far as I just can't have the bulk of my money come from someone telling me what I have to be creative.
Do. Of course not.
It's like I understand that about myself, so I can't go that route. If I wasn't that way, then I would probably go to like a much more commercial friendly.
Good news for you. Right when I left school, I did a little case study, and I looked really, really hard at Andrew Wyeth and Lucian Freud, because those are the two people that at the end of their life were compensated more than any other painters, really $1 million a painting, with general admiration from both the universities, the galleries, the museums, and usually those three don't agree on things.
Right.
You know, what does Lucian Freud and Andrew Wyeth have in common? And one thing they really did have in common was, you know, they just didn't really do commissions. Like, you don't think they weren't really for sale like that. You know, you're not going to tell. They got commissions that were sort of like, you know, Mr. Wyeth, you just do whatever you want to do and I'll buy it like that. Or, you know, Lucian Freud's portrait of the Queen and things like this. But they didn't really get commissions like that, and it made me feel much better about all the times I dropped the ball on a commission, because I was like, oh no, I'm much more like Andrew Wyeth and Lucian Freud. You can't tame this beast. You know, like that. You can't buy me. You know.
Yeah, I know. I always think, because I work a full-time job, and it's just like I'm just willing to do that. I'm willing to do that rather than take your shitty commission I don't want to do.
Agreed, and I think you will find a ton of historical precedents that's on your side. I mean, that is classic Einstein at the patent office thought, where you're sort of like, look, we could get a commercial interaction to come between us and do this with my thing that I'm doing that's kind of pure over here, or I could just go work, you know. Right. And I think most of, maybe Lucian Freud is kind of unemployable and stuff, but I believe he would have actually went and got the job before he would have gone down some road that's like only painting commissioned portraiture exactly the way they want it. So, I mean, I fully support that, you know.
I found that after I did the concept art work for a couple of years and went into fine art, I found that it was better. I think you're better off if you're going to do fine art full time, not doing something that's like adjacent to what you actually want to do, because it just saps your creative energy away from
totally
your purpose, I guess, you know, if you want to call it that. Like, if I wanted, that's kind of why I didn't really want to go into trying to do more concept artwork after I got laid off from the place I was at, because I was like, well, I actually really want to paint. Yeah. And isn't it, okay, painting's already difficult. Even when you're painting something that A, you really like, and B, you want it when it's done. You're like, I want this painting on my wall. Yeah. So, I mean, every instance where I've been doing something kind of for somebody else, it's just been such a slog, because you're like, I don't want this, you know, and stuff. And it's as much their idea as it is my idea and stuff. And I was just never, ever good at it. It took me a long time before I learned to kind of politely
turn that down because it made me kind of miserable, I'd rather bag the groceries than go through all that. And the studio environment, it's such a lonely thing too. That makes it worse. You're doing something for somebody else and you're so bored, I mean, it's brutal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right, so it's about that time where we talk shit about a person's artwork. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so as our listeners should know by now, we kind of review a painting by the guest artist and kind of break it down so you get a feel of their work, and and then we let them see it later on in social media or whatever, so they kind of can see what we're seeing and maybe get a point of view that how an artist sees a painting, I guess, kind of, or whatever.
More or less.
So we're looking at Judson's work. He looks very uncomfortable right now. I mean, I feel like I probably would as well. But yeah, it's so to break it down, it's a guy running in snow. He's got a satchel or some what are those bags called? Those
it's
medicine bag.
Yeah, it's a wicker baskety bag thing.
Okay, wicker bag. And he looks like he's in the woods. It's kind of, it's like almost like a snapshot to a movie. Like, I don't know. It makes
actually, that's a compliment, I think.
It makes my mind race as far as like why, because I don't know if he's walking, but it looks like he's running. I don't know if it's supposed
to. It does look kind of running.
Yeah, I got the feeling that he was like in relatively fast motion.
Yeah, so it kind of gives you, I mean, in my head, it goes straight to like, why would someone run in the woods?
The Revenant.
Yeah, exactly.
Bear behind me.
Yeah, that's true.
So that gives us a clue as to, is it you in the picture there?
Yeah, it is actually me in the picture.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, kind of a goofy self-portrait when for years I lived out in the woods and you kind of only have yourself,
Yeah.
Too stingy to hire models to come run in the snow.
Yeah. And
so this does look like around the scene, or around where we stayed in Brackenridge. Was it around there?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's blood on your hands. So I'm assuming this is right after you murdered that one guy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's what's in the basket.
His head. Yeah.
Yeah, keepsake.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, it's
what's in the bag.
It's a very awesome painting. I'm always impressed when artists paint snow. I can never figure out if there's a trick to it or if they're just good because I don't paint snow. I probably think that way about everything. I'm like, is there a trick to it? Or because when you're an artist, you kind of learn things and you're like, oh, that's not as hard as I thought it was, or oh, I probably spent too much time worrying about that and it's not that serious or something. But snow always seems fun. I'm just, first of all, I hate snow. And second of all, so since I hate it, I'm never in it. Is that his breath coming out? Or,
yeah.
I guess that's your breath.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was probably the part I was most proud of.
Yeah.
Which anything like that, smoke, breath, steam, is kind of easy to paint well. So anytime there's a lot of 19th century landscapes, and there's always a chimney smoking because it's just like such an easy score.
Right. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Joseph Zabukvich, he's a really good watercolor painter.
I know.
He says he always puts smoke and stuff in it just because it makes the painting look that much better.
Yeah. He's a pretty cool watercolorist for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. It definitely looks classically painted.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you definitely have like some schooling where, for me, I look like a man who's figuring it out as I go, which is pretty true. But yeah, nice. That's awesome. Is there any context to the painting?
No. I mean, it wasn't ever really supposed to be very narrative. I'm going towards that's my wood pile in the top right, which is covered in snow. So the idea was I was kind of like trudging up to go get the wood for the fireplace at home.
Yeah.
Nice.
This painting kind of means a lot to me because it was one of my first kind of bigger paintings after years of painting basically 9x12s. This is 24 by 30, I think. So it's much bigger to me. After being at Florence Academy for so long and doing everything from life, this is a weird kind of smash up of two things. I had my wife take pictures of me running up and down the hill. I sorted through about 1,000 pictures, kind of put two together, painted just me from the photo, which is only 5% of the surface area of the painting. Then I took it outside and I painted the background and the stuff from life. And, everything, if you are well acquainted with the types of schools I went to, most of the students leave those schools thinking that kind of thing is totally impossible. Like, oh, you can't do that. You have to set it up with two mirrors and this and that. And it was probably the first experiment like that actually worked. So I was really proud of it, that it wasn't so obviously from photos, so obviously from life, somewhere in between, kind of in action. Obviously, the Spanish painter Sorolla is kind of the top guy for people in motion. Zorn, too, painted a lot of people in motion. So it's also a painting that I really like because I learned a super valuable art world lesson. I thought a lot of it. It meant a lot to me. I sent it for consideration, paid money too, for consideration in this show. I won't say where or anything like that. It was totally rejected, and then I turned around a week later and sold it for way more than I would have gotten for it in the show. So to spend a week super upset, kind of be like, I can't believe I didn't get into this thing, and I thought this was just perfect, and this is the best I've ever painted, and they hated it, and all this. And, I was thinking that there was going to be a financial repercussion for not getting in, but it turned out to be the exact opposite. So,
that's awesome.
My attitude...
suck it, gallery.
Exactly, kind of. I was kind of like, geez, you guys missed out, because, the person who bought it from me would have bought it through the gallery, too.
Yeah.
And, a couple weeks later, they had the opening, and I saw the picture, and I know a lot of the painters that were in this show, but, the work was pretty bad, but there was a couple really good painters in there. But when I saw a picture of the opening, the only people in the picture were the painters. Yeah. And I was like, oh, no. It's like nobody's going to sell anything like this. And meanwhile, I was, on the sideline with enough. I mean, I think this painting paid for me to go to Italy for 2 months that year. Not that awesome. It's cheap to go to Italy, so it wasn't like I got so much. But when the gallery rejects you and then not take out their 50%, you get all the money and the check cleared so fast. I had, it was a great sale. So
nice, so $1 million.
Yeah, somewhere around there. You know how it is. After studying Andrew Wyeth and Lucian Freud, I put the price high.
Yeah.
Nice so it's something I'm pretty proud of. I haven't really been very successful at mashing up reference material and life since. But yeah, it's one that's always meant a lot to me. So I haven't seen it since I sold it, but I imagine it's one of the few paintings that if I see it in the future, I'll kind of go, oh, that's not that bad.
Yeah.
I think my painting got been doing a lot worse or whatever. So.
Do you know where it is? Who owns it and everything?
Totally. Someone who has a couple paintings of mine.
Okay. Are they anywhere near Colorado? Or?
Nope. No. Went to Alabama.
Oh, wow.
I know. Gotta love Alabama. They were like, the best kind of snow is in a painting on my wall.
Yeah, exactly. I think Josh would agree with that.
Yeah, totally.
For sure. But I also wouldn't want them. The best form of Alabama to me is also on my wall.
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole thing to me, it means you asked for a painting, and I was kind of like, this one means a lot to me.
Nice. That's awesome.
I was on the fence. I have a painting of my friend Scott Pan, who Sergio's met before, and I painted it probably a year and a half before this, and it's my friend Scott in like a little bit of almost a cavalry uniform.
Oh,
and
I remember
stuff.
that. Yeah.
And man, I did way better than I usually do, and Scott was such an awesome model, and that was probably my second favorite painting I've ever painted, and this was probably my first,
Nice. That's awesome. And that was painted by, he was a live model?
Yeah, when I painted Scott, yeah. Yeah, he just came. It's him sitting there in profile in this jacket. He just came for, I don't know, every afternoon for a week or something, and I painted him. He's a cool guy painter himself, so he kind of gets it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is that your preferred way of painting?
Yeah, I'm kind of like by hook or by crook, I'll do anything. I futz with reference material and photographs every now and then. The problem is, it's kind of like when I do a commission, it takes a little bit out of me, and I'm a little less interested, and I maybe go too slow because it doesn't change and stuff. When I paint outside, I think a lot of times the pictures come out a little less professional looking and a little less polished, but I go back to them a year later and they mean more to me or something. And these days in the world of art, I mean, go to the Met, there's all sorts of ugly pictures everywhere. So it doesn't have to look so, I'm not trying to be in the magazines and stuff, so it doesn't have to look polished like that. And the ones, you got to work on every painting like it's not going to sell, and you're going to be stuck with it. And the ones I paint from life, I never care when they don't sell, because I'm like, well, good, whatever, I get it now, Right. And even though maybe to other people they look a little more amateurish, to me, I like them, Oh,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like the old get a tattoo that means something, not something you think is cool, because that shit'll change.
You're stuck. Yeah, you're stuck with it.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a good analogy.
Awesome.
Yeah. Basically, every painter I know owns 90% of their work.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't make things you don't want.
Yeah, or their friends own 90%.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That too.
Yeah. I noticed when I looked through your artwork, I feel like it's almost feels like from another time. I don't know if you prefer that, or if that's even, I don't know if this is a diss or anything.
No. I mean, I take that as a compliment. I'm definitely using certain materials and stuff that are pretty traditional. I can't look at my own work and give you an objective position, because
Right.
I just see my work and I know it's not as good as 19th century or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
like for instance, like you have a wicker basket on your back.
Totally.
It's
So
like I think I noticed that with some
Yeah.
other stuff. I'm like, oh, it kind of like looks like it's like older.
yeah, I
like
usually
the model is
yeah.
dressed in older garb or
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, I try. Up until recently, I've really tried to keep things as timeless as possible. Right now, I'm actually starting to kind of change my mind, and I'm wondering. I mean, it sounds totally crazy, but I'm editing less cars out of picture. If I painted a portrait of Kim Kardashian, I'd let her wear a Chanel shirt and I'd paint that. I'm finding myself less interested in making something so timeless
Right.
and with less markers of our time in it. Now I'm kind of like, oh no, I'll paint jeans and sneakers, or whatever. That's cool. That's probably going to be more interesting to somebody in the future anyways.
Yeah, that's how I think of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird...
It's because when I look at older paintings, I mean, I don't know any of the artists' names, but they have like, like the guy with like the cafe,
Nighthawks by Hopper.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it kind of speaks of a time, and I'm assuming he's from that time.
He is.
You know, and anyone in all the time periods of art, I kind of always enjoy like even though I don't paint people in like their natural habitat for the most part, it's always like me wanting to do a figure, you know, whatever. But whenever you see the old cars,
Totally.
and when people are, floating around on hoverboards or whatever,
Yeah.
maybe they're like, look at those tires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had kind of a revelation once actually looking at a painting by Sean Cheetham where I was at this show thing in Denver. There was a ton of paintings by people hung up, all of whom I had wanted to see before. Most I was kind of like, I don't really care that much. It was actually a picture by Joseph Todorovich. I was like, okay, but that's really good, like this. And he had this painting by Sean Cheetham of this dude in kind of like a flannel shirt, and I think he had a hat and like some thick rimmed glasses on. And at first I'm looking at the painting and I'm like, I didn't totally love it because I goes, I guess that's kind of a hipster look or something.
Right.
Like it's so now and stuff. And I turned around at the party. There was like 10 dudes that looked exactly like this guy.
Yeah.
And then I really liked the painting. I was like, no, he's actually painted a real picture of what it is now and stuff. And it totally changed my mind. I'll never forget it. It was a few years ago now, and now my opinion has totally changed. I don't really want to be timeless. I don't care if people look at it and go, 2017, obviously, like that. I'm not going out of my way to include, billboards and sneakers and stuff, but I'm also not trying to avoid it the same way as I was.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think that speaks to the idea that we're talking about, how the art that's happening right now is interesting to us because of that, because it speaks to us as people living in 2018.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that painting on top of that was really, really well painted too.
Yeah.
So it's like
Sean
step
Cheetham,
one is
so,
it's like he did such a good job. The face was so sensitively handled. It was really strong. And then step two, it was also not fake old.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I think I'd prefer a painting done really well versus one so overtly modern because I have seen a lot of people that paint things that are obviously modern, but 9 out of 10 times they're like so bad at painting. They're kind of like, oh, well, okay, I guess it's not a problem that he's wearing Nikes, but the problem is that it's not good, or whatever. With the Sean Cheetham picture, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, this is actually could be in the future like kind of a relic of our age when people be like, is that what people looked like? And be like, oh yeah, we all had stupid glasses back then.
People from the future probably aren't going to look at paintings done in 2018 of fake old, like the Atelier students, like painting people in Greek robes or whatever. They're going to look at actual historical paintings.
You hit on a super good point about what happens at those schools. On one hand, I totally agree with you. On the other hand, I think it's worth remembering that at those schools, they've chosen to only teach painting, not art. So we should expect the art to be awful, which it is.
I'm not talking especially about the student work.
No, but oh my God.
Learning, but like if you're still doing that 5-10 years after school.
It's naked people in caves with a deep title like this and be like, but you're not even religious. Why'd you make a biblical scene?
Yeah,
be like,
exactly.
I don't know, St. Jerome, he's wrinkly. Like that. Yeah. So, it's a big problem at those schools. They not only do it in subject matter, they do it in materials too, because there's not a red stronger than like burnt sienna in those pictures. And you're sort of like, okay, this is great for the 18th century, but my God, it looks dingy on this chick in Miami's wall, so.
Right.
It's funny when I look at this painting, just because I instantly think he's running either from death, or running from trouble, like he did something or someone's trying to do something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very maybe because snow and I didn't grow up in the wilderness, so
No. I mean, I think it kind of it with the narrative open that way, then it's kind of open to interpretation.
Right.
Yeah.
At these schools, a lot of times people are arguing what's the difference between, fine art and illustration. And I would say when the narrative is almost too obvious, you're in the realm of illustration, kind of. And I really work hard to make it, a person in a place doing something, but you don't want to be too obvious about it, or then you're, then you're kind of...
I'm guilty of making it probably too obvious.
Too obvious, yeah. Well, here's an example. Pretty girl in the kitchen, peeling peas. If she's looking off in the distance just a little bit, that's just enough like what's going on to be like, well, she was just broken up with. And now she's the peas, like this, or the baby she never had like this, So you gotta leave it open for the sophistos to be able to read into it, I think he's a Western colonist who's oppressed the Native Americans, and now he's running away. I'm open. Whatever the interpretation is fine.
Is he wearing the new Yeezys because you want to talk about
Totally. That they fit right in there like that. The drop's coming next week for the new Yeezys like that.
Nice.
You shouldn't joke about Yeezys and those guys though, because let me tell you, in Italy, they're very in touch with the fashion world and all this, and they like it. And painters, we have so much to learn from the world of fashion. Maybe not for good reasons, but there's no more powerful, sophisticated want machine than fashion and like cars and stuff like that. And we have such a hard time as painters. There's nobody, I don't know anybody who's like, oh, I've got some 2016 Judson, but I just heard 2018 Judson is so much better. I gotta get it like this. We have a hard time inspiring interest, desire in what we do, and those guys, man, half the fashion people, they're not even really selling anything like this. What is makeup? It's all the same like this, but they have such a great way of like understanding human psychology and being able to tug. I mean, right now they've turned all of China into fashionistas that just gotta get this stuff, and we only need to harness 1% of that power before all painters' problems go away, and we can all sell our pictures because people are like, oh, you like Sergio's? Yeah, it's pretty cool, but I'm into Judson's, and that guy's into Josh's. It's what defines me.
I don't know if I like that though. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like the. Like postmodern guys where they're like all like triangles and they're just selling you like or whatever, like all those whatever fucking era of art that is, that where they're just selling you, I don't know, they're just good salesmen.
Yeah.
And I don't know,
there's a lot of that.
I feel like that's kind of how the fashion world is, and they got their hustle. I don't mind it, whatever, but I'm like afraid of that more than like, it comes back to the whole idea of like, I would prefer the model that kind of the comedians want, where we all just are like, the good are good, and then and then we all are like, let's work as a fucking team and make sure we all eat. Like that to me is like, the fashion world is such a clusterfuck of like, of huge being great marketers and I don't know. I'm not. I mean, I appreciate the hustle, but I'm afraid of it.
I mean, the intersection of commerce and art is kind of unattractive. We all get there and go, this is not nearly as cool as I thought it was going to be to sell these things and stuff like that. But at the same time, I have two friends that I'm thinking of on the top of my head that make absolutely incredible paintings, whose Instagram photos are so bad, who follow nobody and things like this, and you're like, oh man, you just need like one pinch of one of these fashion dudes, or something.
Well, I can see that too. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty okay at social media, And that definitely helps me. So,
Yeah.
and there's definitely some artists that you're like, come on, man. And then you have like, I feel like David Cho, he's like a genius at marketing himself, you know, like, and he is the man he is because of that, I think.
Yeah.
You know, in my opinion, I mean, you could blame Facebook money, but
Yeah.
I think it's more than that. I think he's just a genius marketer.
Yeah, I feel like even without Facebook, he would still be making tons of money.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think isn't Damien Hirst and people like this, isn't that the realm they're working in? They're saying, where is, you know, what the fashion people have and use it to art, you know, for art reasons and stuff.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, it's like, if that's the road you want to go down, I feel like it's different than painting.
I think my opinion on these things are always the same. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in jumping head in, but you should look at it and learn a little bit from it, you know, because I mean, there's definitely some lessons there where it's sort of like, wow, everybody sells jeans, but you know, but like these people are better about it than other people. So
yeah, I think so, and I think there is a quality to a good amount of those. You know,
well, that's the other thing. You have two situations: someone who's using nothing but marketing to sell you junk, and then someone who has decent marketing, and then what they turn around and give you is a halfway decent painting. You're sort of like, wow, it was so easy to do a deal with you, and I like the painting.
And I think the fashion people, they have that as well. Like they're, you know, the people that are good at marketing, they also might have a really good product.
Yeah, of course. If you're professional marketer, the best thing you can ever get is a good product. Then you get to go and tell the truth about it instead of lie. Be like, they're good pants, they last, you know.
Then you have like Nike, which is like a piece of shit shoe company.
That's funny, yeah.
That they just live off a name. So
that's why I'm a diehard Adidas fan. No Nike.
Yeah, I wear shoes for people with wide feet. I have no choice. So fuck
I wear
you,
Reeboks because they're cheap.
But yeah, that's awesome. I think we're probably coming close to.
Yeah, I think so.
The episode.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Do you have anything you want to like promote?
No. I just wanted to say thank you because I think this is a super cool thing. I hope there's a 1,000 other people in other houses recording cool podcasts talking about this stuff.
Me too.
The modern world is a wild place, and I think there's a lot of aspects of it that are oppressive. Certainly the one thing we have going for us right now is you're kind of allowed to live your own reality and make your own scene.
Yeah, that's true.
I would have to say that what you guys are doing with a podcast is much more of an attempt at bolstering and making its own scene than anything I've contributed lately. So it's a real pleasure to be on here and talk about stuff, and I hope you guys just keep going and ask a bunch of other people to do this, because anybody who's smart will automatically say yes, because it's totally fun and awesome.
Oh, you hear that? People that said no suck on.
Did anybody say no? I'd be surprised. I can't picture a painter being like, no, I don't want to go talk about myself, you know.
Well, I mean,
one person will go unnamed. He was too shy, basically.
Oh, really? Yeah, there's a couple of those out there.
Yeah, which I totally understand. I mean, we all know artists. Some of them are just deathly afraid of. Yeah, which is perfectly fine. But and
I appreciate those words too. I think you contributed plenty with your insights here tonight. So
and thank you for sure for doing this as well. I mean, if no one comes on, then we're pretty much me and Sergio just
feedback
talking
loop
and crying
each other. Yeah,
we're gonna cry on mic. But I mean, I did want to say, we'll shout you out on our social media. So if you guys want to see his work,
definitely
check it out.
Judd Fine Art with the space, or not spaces,
underscores.
Yeah.
And
if you just look up my name on Instagram, Judson Monroe, it comes up.
Yeah. And then you seem to mention this website you guys have.
Yeah, Realist Art Resource. That's really cool.
Is that a .com or?
Yep, realistartresource.com. It's a website. They have an Insta account too. It's really cool. When it was initially born, there was always sort of one idea behind it. If you are younger, late high school or something like that, and you're thinking this is something you want to do, the list of schools on Realist Art Resource is really good. There's lots of cool stuff going on out there. We did all the free demo videos that are on YouTube. We kind of curated through them and put them up there. And if there's a good book and it's for free on Google Books, then it's listed.
Awesome.
So, I mean, it's just got a bunch of links. The website itself doesn't change that much because sometimes a link comes down and sometimes something goes up. There's not too much original content. But I go on there all the time, and I think if you're serious about painting, it's worth giving it a look. It's very similar to ARC, but fundamentally different because there's no money involved. Nobody pays to be linked or posted on there. It's it's a really cool resource for sure.
Awesome. Yeah,
You don't bash modern art every chance you get either.
Yeah. I mean, the ARC situation is a particular one. I don't want to be too critical because they do give money to students to go to the schools I think are cool. In the same token, they definitely wrote us a mean letter being like, what are you guys doing? Who are you? Like that. And they were super upset because we made a point of putting like, we don't accept money to be like listed on here. And once you become acquainted with ARC, I mean, everything on there is paid for. So you can only trust it so much.
All right. That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'll definitely check that out.
We've been bashing. I mean, I've been bashing art schools for a long time. I mean, I don't necessarily hate art schools. I just kind of feel like I wasn't meant to go to art school, so that's kind of my thing. But I mean, I've said if you're prone to learning in that kind of environment, then definitely go that route. So
and I mean,
resource.
Not all of these are full-time schools the same way that Art Academy is or other places, or like Yale's BFA program or something like this. They're very different. They are very flexible places where you can go, and if you can only do night drawing, you can probably make a deal with them. If you can only be there part-time, you can probably make a deal with them. I would just go to a place where the teachers are doing stuff you really like, even though what the teachers are doing shouldn't dictate what you're going to do afterwards. A great example would be the school Golden Gate Atelier in Oakland, because I don't think, that guy running that, Andy Amaral, he's not trying to make people that paint exactly like him. You just go there to learn how to do things really well, and he hopes you go off and do something a little bit different. All painters should be should want their friends and graduates to succeed. And I think these little ateliers really do, because they count on their students coming, doing a good job, leaving, and hopefully being more successful than them, because that's the best thing that could ever happen to a school, is have a bunch of awesome alumni.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us again.
No, thank you guys.
Yeah.
And this has been Waiting to Dry. If you're still listening, fuck off.
Be nice. All right.